Okay, now let's address this double-sided weather concern that they were talking about today, and is it even a real concern? Is it too wet to plant, or is it going to be too dry?
So last week...
Same weather forecast too, by the way.
Exactly right. Last week, more or less a little wet here early starting out. Right now the forecast for this week is, of course, still in general a little warmer and drier. Here's that crop moisture index. This is the short-term 5 foot and down to 5 foot below weather profile. And as we noted last week, keep in mind this is delayed. This is actually May 15th. This is actually over a week delay. This is of course, this is the most latest we have here. But the point is that for most areas, soils are still a little moist right now. And here's that forecast that's going into next week. So now we've got warmer and drier lineup for this week. How about next week? And this one looks to be, for the most part, normal temps, maybe a little above normal in the western Corn Belt. Also of interest, precip-wise, looks like a little lower than normal precip for most of the Corn Belt. So at this point, you're still going to hear clients talking the western Corn Belt, maybe about some of the dryness showing up here off and on, and getting some people discouraged on those lines here.
Okay, but now we got how much of the beans to plant yet?
So as far as the beans, the numbers that'll be out this afternoon, average guess says 56% planted is what the talk is, and that'd be right at the 5-year average, which is 57. And if we can skip over this chart here momentarily, we'll take a look at that.
Well, let's go. That's okay.
Bean one right here. Here's this number. So we'll pretty much be right on the average. 56, we said, is the average guess for this one.
Well, today's rally was actually, they were talking about how beans are getting behind normal, but in reality, it's just a mental thing because the spring was early. I mean, we're really on track.
That's exactly right, Bill. We've just become accustomed to this early planting idea right now. As far as the corn-wise, we'll be 93% planted. That's the average guess for corn. That's 93% planted as far as that goes. However, the key report for corn is not going to be a planting number. The number is going to be on this crop condition, good to excellent. So this will be the second week in a row. And at this point, the average guess, like I said, is up 1%. It's 68% good to excellent is the average guess. And as this chart shows, we're actually still going to be just under the 5-year average. So at this point, now it's still too early to call these early crop condition reports anything accurate yet. You need to get that crop out of the ground with a good foot or so before we can say these are actually something worth watching. But for right now, we actually have maybe a average, a little less than average crop as far as what these will tell us here.
Okay, so just so people know what you're really saying here, given where we're at with planting and the stage of the crop and stuff, would you interpret the weather forecast bullish or bearish? How would you
At this point, unless an extended hot and dry shows up, you can't say this is bad at all. You got to say this is good for the crop. Right?
With all that subsoil moisture, heat's good.
That's right. That's the attitude you got to keep in mind.
All right, let's go on.
And we mentioned as far as beans, here's that 56% planted. So we're going to be right on the average guess, or right on the 5-year average at this point. Really, the only thing I want to talk about as far as the beans-wise, other than the planting and such, is this idea of, we talked about in the last few days in the report, this whole idea of the biodiesel tax credit. This is now going to be put in the new House bill, which is actually up for a vote for the House actually this week. And this is the one where the government gives $1 per gallon biodiesel credit to producers. One thing I wanted to point out with this chart, so we make biodiesel from not only soybean oil, but also other products. And this chart shows all the other products all put together. The blue line here is for the biodiesel. This tax credit expired on December 31st of last year. What happened in January to biodiesel production based on soybean oil? It dropped in half once that credit stopped. So we got to point out that if we start to hear some good news on this biodiesel tax credit, it's actually going to be a big deal for getting this rebounded biodiesel and soybean oil usage lined up here. So that's one thing we're kind of watching here, and that also might be another minor reason why we do see the beans pick up pretty good here today.
Okay. Yeah, they had a pretty good rally. They got right up into that resistance and then ended up backing off into the close. And I think that was more on concern about the European thing, don't you, Rich?
I think it partly was there, yeah.